Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos a la Consecrated Media. I am on vacation this week for spring break, so I apologize in advance as I am recording this on my phone and we may be picking up a little bit of Mexican ambience in the condo building. Today, I am talking with a very talented musician and a good friend of mine named Benjamin Daniel, and we talk a little bit about his music and an album called Fault Lines by Andy Gullahorn. I think you guys will enjoy it a lot. I've tried to keep up with the news this week, even though I'm on vacation, so here's what I've got. First, Will Smith is trying to get back in the spotlight, particularly the positive spotlight. So he just dropped an album which is called Based on a True Story. It is funny, it's been getting some memeage. Beirut also released a new album, which is comprised of 18 commissioned tracks for a Swedish circus troupe, which, if you know his music at all, is very on brand. I enjoyed the album a lot. My sister loved his music when I was just a little guy, so I find it very nostalgic. And the biggest release for I guess, alternative Christian media, and for me personally, is Send a Prayer My Way by Julian Baker and Torres. This is an interesting album. I actually talk with Ben about Julian Baker in today's episode, but here's a little breakdown on this album in particular. She's made some music that really addresses the nasty and, frankly, unaddressable parts of life, but her music tends to be very Christ-haunted, is the way that Ben put it in today's episode. And I would say that certain songs do that here, but this is definitely her most, I guess, fun. I don't know if I could say fun, but she's having fun with this sound. It's very country influenced, and I enjoy a lot of the songs on it, but I wouldn't say it's one of my it's not on par with her first two records. That's partially due to some fundamental theological differences, but I try not to let that get in the way of my enjoyment of the music. But I also just, on initial listen, don't like it quite as much as those, and those are untouchable all-timer albums for me. Having said that, my track for this week is going to be Downhill Both Ways from that album. It is a heavy track, so be warned, but I love it. It encapsulates the album's successes. It's really about how hard addiction and substance abuse suck, but it manages to be captivating and empathetic in its presentation of those. It's also a very beautiful folk and country guitar arrangement, and I will leave that right there at that right there. A24, the film studio, has created their own record label called A24 Music, so excited to see what comes from that. And then in the film world, Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners is doing very well critically and doing pretty well in the box office as well. Trailers are out for the new Fantastic Four movie, which is not normally something I would care about, but I think it looks interesting. It's trying to pay homage to a lot of retro space stuff, which I like. I think it's a decently creative idea, and I like Pedro Pascal, so I may check that out when it's in theaters. We also got a trailer for a new Ari Aster movie, which is starring Joaquin Phoenix. That movie is called Eddington, and it will be out in July. Some other interesting news for those of you who enjoy Star Wars. There will be a new Star Wars movie coming out in May 2027. It is directed by Sean Levy, and it stars Ryan Gosling. It's called Star Wars Starfighter. And then some big news for the Christian film world. Angel Studios' animated movie King of Kings has become the highest-grossing animated faith-based movie ever, beating out Prince of Egypt as number one. It's also now the studio's second highest-grossing project ever, sliding right behind Sound of Freedom with a $200 million difference between the two. The Chosen also had a successful week as the season has come to a close. And that is about it for the news today. I hope you all had a wonderful Easter weekend celebrating Christ's resurrection, and with that, I will move us on to the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Consecrated Media. For this week's episode, I'm very excited to have a good friend of mine and a very talented musician whose music I love. His name is Benjamin Daniel. Hi, Ben. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Bradley. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. We did have a couple minutes to chat before this, I will say, so yeah.
Get into podcast mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretend like we haven't been talking for 15 minutes or so.
Yeah. Well, just for anyone who doesn't know, and I've mentioned your music a little bit on the show before, but just what do you do music-wise? You've got 4 albums out now?
Yes, I have 4 albums. 3.5, kind of. I think the first album is almost a glorified demos album in ways, but 4 albums. And so I've just been cranking them out whenever I can and whenever I have the resources. I just like making stuff. So
Yeah, understandable. I personally, my favorite is Shelter Heart, but I've really enjoyed all of your albums, and knowing more personally than a lot of listeners would, I guess, just where you're coming from is gives a cool perspective when I listen to your music. But yeah, I have the Shelter Heart CD, and I'm always listening to that one in my car. So
Dude,
yeah,
thank you. That's my favorite too,
very
for
cool.
what it's worth. That's like, yeah, that's to me the one to. I'm not even trying to beat it, but that's,
Understandable.
yeah, I'm so happy with how that one turned out. So it's encouraging to hear it's still blessing people.
hmm Well, also, before we get into the artist and album and stuff that you had chosen to talk about, are you working on any new music at all, whether it's just like some songs or an album or any projects?
Yeah, I'm always working on stuff in some capacity. I just got my own recording gear and like beginner stuff because I've had other people help me record.
Yeah.
But I was just talking with a buddy of mine out in Colorado and looking to start tracking some stuff remotely and sending him some stuff to mix and just it's kind of we'll see how it goes. So I'd love to have more new music out. Even it'd be awesome if by the end of the year. If not, then we'll see. But I've got album ideas always swirling in my head. I love albums.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I think in terms of albums and album experiences. So that's what got me into music. So if I was just a singles guy who was just, I don't know, it probably would be more marketable. I'm trying to figure out a good balance of
hmm
how do I market things and keep doing music, but still how do I play the game that will help me make more music without having to do stuff I don't want to do and being able to still do what I want to do. So I'm figuring that out right now. And so, but I'm always making it, always writing it, and that's
Gotcha.
kind of my favorite part. So
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of backstory also. Ben and his family are very deeply rooted in my church here in Georgia. For a while, you helped with our youth group and you do music stuff with us. And then as you moved out to school, it's very cool just seeing you start recording more and work with some other friends from church and Chase Tremaine, who we had on the show a couple weeks ago, people like that. But yeah, so we go way back.
yes, I know, and it's so funny because Bradley, like it's just been so long since I've like seen you in person.
I was a wee lad last time we were together in person.
You were a wee lad, and I was younger than I am now for sure because that's how aging works.
Indeed.
But but
Yeah.
it's so cool to see you doing this though. I love this.
Thank you, thank you.
And I love that you talked to Chase. Chase is
Yeah, he knows a lot about music, Christian music.
oh bro, that guy is a nerd in the best way.
Yeah,
And he's helped me greatly with his nerdiness because he's such a great musician and has contributed so much to the stuff I've made.
yeah,
But I love that guy.
yeah. It was a very fun conversation. Anyway, back to the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say I love that you focus in on albums because, there are certain Christian artists and a lot of the ones that we've brought up on the show so far are the same, but most of what you hear on Christian radio or just the most famous Christian music in general is very singles oriented. Or like finding the hit worship song, stuff like that. And it's really unique and powerful to be able to have an album, or if you have like the CD or the record, you can listen to and experience that being its own sort of form of devotion is always really cool. And then with the artist you chose, Andy Gullahorn, you said Fault Lines is your favorite album, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
What do you like about this one specifically? Because before you recommended him, I hadn't listened to any of his music. I'd heard his name a little bit. I believe he collaborated with Andrew Peterson. But just tell me about him and this album and your experience with his music.
Yeah, so Andy Gullahorn was a part of where I first heard his name was he was a part of this collective of artists that called themselves the Square Peg Alliance.
Hmm.
So it was like the Rabbit Room is what's more known now, but a lot of those artists kind of went on. I think it kind of expanded into what's become the Rabbit Room in a lot of ways. But Caveman's Call was like my favorite band when I was younger, and that was a big band that was part of that alliance. Andrew Peterson, who would come to be my favorite artist later on, was part of it. But Andy Gullahorn was part of it too. At the time, I didn't really listen to Andy Gullahorn, but he was kind of in this group of artists who have, to this day, had a very deep impact on me. who didn't really fit into the secular mold, but didn't really fit into the like CCM like worship mold either. And
Yeah.
Andy Gullahorn, I started to discover his stuff because I mean I saw his name all the time. He plays with Andrew Peterson. I think he plays on most of his records, but might not even be credited on all of them. I think it's just a given that he's
Gotcha.
plays with him a lot, and then he plays with him on the Behold the Lamb of God tour every year,
Okay.
and so that's where I really got into his stuff, and I've been listening to Fault Lines when it came out because I knew this guy Andy was a great songwriter. This was back in 2016, and then I talked to Andrew after a Behold the Lamb of God show, and I bought Fault Lines at Andy Gullahorn's table.
Hmm.
And Andrew looked at the CD in my hand and he said, "Hey, that's songwriting school."
Nice.
And I'm like, "Noted. Like, I will listen to this a lot." And he's right. Like, I mean, I think like Andrew Peterson is my favorite songwriter in the world. I think if you want to just judge something by craft and how good of a storyteller he is, I think Andy Gullahorn might be the best I've ever heard in just terms of like how he's able to craft
Hmm.
stories. And even like he does this thing. So I have a song called Adjustments that's on a record called Home Enough for Now. And the chorus, if you want to call it that, is just like the name of the song. But the goal is that that word kind of takes a little bit of a different meaning as the song progresses. And that's the trick I kind of learned from Andy Gullahorn, because he has a way of like having a very simple line in the chorus, but the story he tells in the verses like brings more meaning to that
Yeah.
simple chorus every time it comes back around. Like he has a song called Dad Like Mine on Fault Lines that I don't even want to like it. I don't want to spoil it. Like it's the storytelling is so good in the song. I don't even want to spoil where the song goes.
Yeah.
It has these turning points in his songs. He injects a lot of humor into his songs,
Yeah.
but it's usually just him and the guitar. So it's hard to market his stuff because he's a really great guitarist, and I think his stuff is very intricate and exciting to listen to.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like Andrew Peterson. It's one of those things where it's like I listen to a lot of indie rock stuff and alt rock stuff, but then I tell people, but Andrew Peterson's my favorite songwriter, and I have trouble getting people into them. And I tell them I'm like you have to give it time to like nestle into your soul because it's
Yeah.
conversational and it's very
It's kind of minimalistic.
yeah. And I'd say Andy Gullahorn is maybe more minimalistic than Andrew Peterson. It is usually just him and a guitar if you listen to any of his records.
Yeah.
But his storytelling, if his music doesn't have like as much color as somebody like a Sufjan Stevens or somebody who's like really extravagant, or John Guerra,
Hmm.
it's like his songwriting and storytelling, I'd say even guitar work at times, like the songs separate themselves out. There's so much color
Yeah.
in the stories that he tells that when I listen to his songs, they all sound very different and they all are very distinct.
Hmm.
But you just have to be willing to listen to just a guy and a guitar telling stories. But that's why I think he's so amazing. So
That's awesome. Yeah, he's definitely like when I think, singer songwriter, it's this sort of
yeah,
music. It's got like just
yeah,
almost like a classic folk, like James Taylor, like that sort of sphere of music
yeah,
it reminded me of.
yeah. It's like the purest form of that term, like singer songwriter.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you mean with certain songs on Fault Lines. I see what you mean about him using humor to introduce a more significant theme, like on the song "Is It Real," which from my first listen through to the album, I think that was my favorite one, or that one stood out to me because it's a song about just like doubting your belief in God and struggling with that.
Mm,
The way he introduces it is he talks about seeing someone who looks like Donald Trump standing in communion line,
mm-hmm.
and he's talking about like his hair that looks like it was glued on and stuff.
Yeah.
And then from that he goes to, and then that makes me question, is it real? And then
yeah.
it just kind of hits you because you've been so softly introduced to that theme.
Uh-huh.
But that's an experience that I think a lot of Christians have, and you don't see covered in a lot of
Yeah.
Christian music, and that's where storytelling is just so powerful in this art.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any other specific favorite songs on this album or just from his catalog in general?
Yeah, from the album, the first song's probably my favorite, Not Too Late.
Hmm.
It's the kind of song I wish more people were writing right now, even because I think there's so much wandering in music
Yeah,
and having a heart. I know my heart and what I do is like I want to, if I could be the brother in my songs to bring other brothers back from wandering and sisters. You know, it's like that to me is like the highest calling alongside just the Great Commission in general.
yeah,
And so just his shepherding heart in that song and the
gotcha.
climax of that song talking about, you know, grace is more than a concept to believe in, something more real than your beating heart, runs to the depths of where you are, follows you there, tracing your steps, whispering over and over again, that's not too late, it's not too late, it's not too late. Like just that, just the way he even builds into that crescendo is so powerful. And I need that because I'm, you know, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, you know. So
Yeah,
I love that song so much. He just has lines that I think of a lot. I've thought about, I want to be well. At times I'm really struggling with sin, and I'm like, I want to go back to the mire. I just think of that song sometimes. Broken Heart is just an amazing song. The album's like the last run of songs on the record, I think, is especially strong. I think it ends in a really powerful place.
yeah,
I'll meet you there. That might be my favorite on the record.
gotcha.
That one comes to me, and I listen to that one when I'm in a really low spot a lot.
Hmm.
You know?
Yeah, it's very nurturing music, I would say. I listened to it this morning on my drive to church. I was like, it got my heart in the right place, I would say, which, is not always something that like will magically happen when you listen to music, but it's very powerful when that does happen. And I really
Mhm.
appreciate that in Christian music. Yeah, I also immediately thought the first song was a standout for me, and I haven't had as much time as you to dig through all the lyrics and let it speak to my heart as much, but it still is a really
Yeah,
beautiful song. Yeah, I also didn't realize this until this morning, but you chose a great artist for us to cover today because he just released a new song.
it's so good.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet, but I found out a story about Andy Gullahorn when I was doing my research for this episode that he and one of his friends have a weekly tradition that they've been doing since like I think 2014 it said,
Hmm.
where they'll walk a mile and a half to go high five each other.
Yep.
And I believe that new song was about this, or it was about that, and just having traditions and small things you can do
Hmm.
to be kind to one another, and I really like that.
Yeah, it's one of the most famous high fives now because
Yeah,
yeah, Gabe Scott, he plays with, or at least he used to play with Andrew. I think he produced Andrew's Burning Edge of Dawn album, which is another one of my favorite albums of all time.
that's one of mine as well.
Yeah, and but Gabe, yeah, it's he also owns Ladybird Taco in West Nashville, which is an incredible spot. And
Noted.
I like when I think of that place, I want it so badly because it's so good. But he had, I can't remember what it was, but it was a neurological, like some neurological thing happened where I think he nearly died, but then he lost his memory
Hmm.
and for a time and had to do like, rehab. And yeah, you need to look up more about that high five
Yeah,
because the way it factors into that story is so powerful.
yeah, and I wish I had listened, or at least I like started it, but I didn't listen to the whole thing. But the new song, I know it's about that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd listened to more of it. But I know that that high five has also been covered by like major news publications, and there's a whole story there that I want to look
Yeah.
into.
That's something that Andy Gullahorn does in his music. There's another song called Not Going Anywhere.
Hmm.
It's probably my favorite to sing and probably one I would love to cover because it speaks to the heart that I want to have, which
Yeah,
is like not getting too big for your britches and not seeking a higher thing than you've been given. And I mean, Andy Gullahorn is all about the small moments and is able to capture the beauty of those things and the glory of God in those things.
yeah,
Like very few people I've ever heard. And yeah, his new song is all about that. And I love that spirit because it helps me because I know for me I feel like I'm caught in between these two like opposing things sometimes where I'm like I feel like I have so many ideas. I
hmm,
feel like I have so much to offer. And this is all of us. I don't think this is just a music thing. I think this is just pride, where you're just like, I have this like genius inside of me that other people like just need to hear or need to see.
Yeah.
But then the other side of me is like, I love working in financial aid at my college. I love that my boss is one of the elders at my church. I love that my church life and job life are together. And I've got my friend Tim who will just text me like 2 words. He'll just text me, "What doing?" And I'm just like, "Nothing." And then we go meet up. And I'm just like, that's to me where the joy that God's given me of just giving me people in my life who are keeping me, reminding me of his truth, and also equipping me to go out and tell other people about it. Like, that's, if I didn't have music, sometimes I almost wish I didn't have music, because music just complicates stuff. I'm like I'm like why can't I just do all
Yeah.
these things? And I can, and I do. But anyway, all that to say, I feel like Andy Gullahorn, like, it within music is like that force of, yeah, like, don't think too highly of yourself.
Yeah.
The irony with that is he's the person I'm most frustrated isn't bigger than he is. I'm like I think I know why people don't know him is because he doesn't make himself loud,
Yeah.
through his music or the way he makes albums. But he's just he's an unbelievable songwriter. He's taught me so much in his songs. I've met him a couple times, but we haven't really had a conversation. But I'd love to one day just be able to talk to him at length and be like, "Man, like, I've learned so much from you, just how to craft words." And
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So yeah, Andrew Peterson talking about songwriting school. I'm like, yep. And he's got other songs too. Like, my favorite song of his period is probably off of a different record. It's called "I Will."
I've heard that one. I checked that one out. That's really beautiful. Yeah.
Unbelievable song. Again, like, every verse kind of punctuates with like 2 words,
Mm-hmm.
and it just morphs, and it's like what it becomes at the end is just so powerful. And then that record, no, is it that record? No, there's the record before that. So if you listen to his discography all the way through, the song before "I Will" be on his previous record, "The Law of Gravity." It's called "Working
Mm.
Man." It's one of the funniest songs I've ever heard. So it's like he just does both so well.
Gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, I could go on about his stuff, but when you asked me about artists, I was like, Andy Gullahorn is somebody I feel like I don't talk about nearly as much as I need to, because of how influential he's been.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I tend to gravitate towards talking about people that someone might have more of like maybe like a reference point for, but more people need a reference point for Andy Gullahorn.
Yeah, for sure. He's a very talented songwriter, like one of the best Christian songwriters I've encountered. My in my notes I wrote, if you want someone who combines the vocals of John Mayer and the music of Stephen Curtis Chapman.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, he's really cool. I would say I don't know his whole discography super well, but Fault Lines was a great starting point for me. Do you have any recommendations for where to start other than Fault Lines?
I think "Reinventing the Wheel" is a really good spot. 2005, 2000,
2007.
2007. Okay.
Yeah.
I forget his stuff is like relatively newer. It sounds like artists who started in like the 90s, but he started a little bit later.
Mm.
But yeah, that's a great record. He's one of those guys who I would almost just say, like, go to Spotify and put all of his songs on shuffle, and something's going to stand out in a way that's going to unlock the rest of his art.
Yeah,
Mostly I love listening to albums front to back, but then there's some artists who I'd listen to a little bit differently.
that's fair. Yeah.
And Andy Gullahorn is someone where I'd just be like, put this Fault Lines is one to listen to all the way through. The rest I say just listen on shuffle, and you'll find a song that
Mm-hmm.
something's going to stand out to you, a story or a lyric, or just like just imagery that's going to like captivate your mind, and it's going to unlock the rest of his stuff. Then you'll want to go through all of his records. But I feel like it's so unassuming. It's startling, I think, when it kind of connects. That's how I felt when I first listened to his stuff. And if you see him live, he's also just one of the most funny, like, deadpan people. Do you listen to or do you watch Nate Bargatze ever?
I have. I don't not like regularly, but I know his style.
Clean comedian, super dry. Whenever I watch Nate Bargatze, I'm like, he reminds me of like and he's one of the funniest people on earth, and known for that now, being one of the funniest people on earth. but when I watch him, I think he reminds me of Andy Gullahorn at his concerts. Like, just has
That's
like a
funny.
dry deadpan and is able to he'll just say hi and everyone laughs and it's hysterical.
Nice.
But then he sings a song that makes you cry. The gamut of emotion in his stuff is so cool. So love that man's work.
Very cool. Yeah, aside from him, before I get into my last question, I was just gonna say, nerd out for a second. You did an episode on Jesus Freak Hideout with Nick Weber, and you talk about Me Without You, Sufjan Stevens, and Julian Baker, who are like the three of my all-time favorite artists. And I just wanted to say,
Dude,
you have fantastic days.
incredible. Yeah, and
Yeah,
that was Nick and I were both geeking out. Actually, Nick is I'm wanting to work with him on some stuff this fall. He's who I'm kind of talking with
I'll be
recording
looking
some stuff.
forward to it.
So yeah, all those artists for so many reasons. How long have you known about Me Without You, Bradley? Because they are hard to get people into.
So I've known about them for a while, but I didn't listen to them until probably like my junior year of high school. And then yeah, they're like they're such an emo band. It's not for everyone, but their songwriting is
I
phenomenal.
think he's the best lyricist I've ever heard.
Yeah,
I mean, I would put Aaron Weiss, Andrew Peterson, Andy Gullahorn. I put Sufjan there too.
I won't get into Sufjan. He's my favorite, but
Yeah, all incredible
yeah,
lyricists. I think what draws me to Me Without You, Sufjan, Julian Baker, there's a lot of pain in ways that I don't know that I've heard expressed by almost any other artist.
yeah,
But there's, even if it's not always Christ centered, and there's a level of like, where are they? Like, how are they doing? It's very Christ haunted. I feel like through and through, in a way that
yeah,
like those are the people I pray for the most. There's like Aaron from Me Without You and Sufjan and Julian Baker. Like, I think about those
yeah,
people because I'm like, I resonate with what you're singing about. I resonate with the way you're singing about it, and I just want you to know, like, the peace of Christ,
yeah.
like, more than anything, because I get this and I feel like it's, yeah.
Yeah, the vulnerability of it. Yeah, I'll save some of my thoughts on their music because I want to do like deep dive episodes on each of their specific albums or just their discographies in general. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that. That's also
Yeah.
for anyone who's enjoying this episode, go check that episode of Jesus Freak Hideout out too because it's a great episode. Well, anyway, so Andy Gullahorn, Fault Lines, and the Jesus Freak Hideout podcast episode, and then that brings me to my last question, which I try to ask everybody because it's the most important question you can ask a person. What does Jesus mean to you?
Yeah. I mean, Jesus means everything about me. It's the best way I can say. And I mean, I don't know. That's you texted me that. And I'm like, I can't prepare an answer to that question because I really don't.
Mm,
I've known the Lord since I was 5, and my understanding hasn't really shifted. But it's just like it's grown as I've gotten older. Just seeing how, like, I've always believed in the sovereignty of God. I say always. I mean, since I was a kid, that was what I was taught. But then you actually go through life and you look back and you're like, oh, this is the stuff that I believed when I was a kid, but like I had no idea how true it was. And now you like tracing back and seeing the gospel actually worked out in my life on a day-to-day level. And I forget about it all the time. But knowing that he, for reasons beyond me, has given me grace upon grace, not just the grace of saving me, but the grace of giving me all the things that salvation entails. And I think about my church, and I think about music, and I think about all this other stuff, and it's just he's the way, the truth, and the life. He is God. He is everything, and I forget that all the time. And even talking about artists we love, like, I relate to their forgetting that all the time, and I want to, by the grace of God, I'm not a simple person, but step in and help simplify things for people, and be like, it's just the Sunday school answer sometimes is the right answer. It's Jesus. It's like, yeah, it's just, and so there have been moments. I will say this to get like more vulnerable in ways. The last couple years, since losing my mom and then going through just time of isolation, dealing with physical illness. There have been moments where like I'm like, okay, I'm just struggling with, I don't know if it's like doubting that God exists or even doubting what the Bible says. Because I'm firm in my belief that the Bible is what it says it is, and that God is who He says He is, and very easy for me to believe, but it's very hard for me to believe sometimes that I'm kept.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's true, but like, what if I'm one of the people who's like, even though they see, they turn aside and they don't believe. And then every time I get to that point where I'm like, am I kidding myself that like I'm one of His? Then I just think about His mercy for me. I'm like, Lord, like I can't stop being held if I wanted to. Yeah, that's His, that's Christ's just mercy on me day to day. And leading into Easter weekend, so thankful for the cross and especially thankful for the resurrection and just
Yeah.
that he's actually walked through the death that I fear and come out the other end of it, and He's pulled me out spiritually and will pull me out physically one day. And everything I write is like I want it to be signposts to that. And I try to not be. It's funny because I talk with people and I'll work with people where it's like you don't necessarily know where people are at on these things. And even as I build relationships, I try not to be coy about that or to trick anybody into thinking like, oh, maybe he is kind of halfway in and is a little bit more chill about this stuff. But it's like, no, this is everything to me. Like it's the stakes are high and it's the most important thing. And I'll sing about it until the Lord calls me home. And it's just a matter of what colors the songs take. And so
Yeah.
whether that be like dark blue or really vibrant yellow one day, maybe.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah, He's good. He keeps us. And yeah, I don't know how to process it, but I don't have to process it. If I could process it, it wouldn't be as glorious as it is.
That's true.
I do want to deepen my knowledge of it and my understanding of it and my passion for it.
Understandable. I think, yeah, not to take that and like hop back to the album, but it does reflect certain lyrics I remember from Fault Lines. I know there's one song, it's Broken Heart, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about it's better that Jesus died and left us with broken hearts than no hearts at all. And that theme is really beautiful. So yeah, I agree. Very, very well put.
Yeah. He is near to the brokenhearted. Psalm 51, a broken and a contrite heart you will not despise.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering that instead of getting down in our depravity or our weakness or whatever it might be, that we're like, instead of flogging ourselves as if we can do anything about it, it's like, no, He's actually near to us in our brokenness, and His strength is made perfect in our weakness. And so we just have to submit to that when we get to that point, instead of being like, why am I not God? Essentially is what we're asking.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, long-winded answer. Didn't have anything super prepared because I saw the question. I'm like, I'm just gonna see what flows out of my heart naturally, because that's a big question to
I
prepare for.
mean, that's what the question's for, though, because I love to hear whatever response people have, even if it's not something that's planned. It's just seeing how people would answer that question.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really enjoyed talking about this album. And can people support you through Bandcamp, or where can they find your music?
Yeah, Bandcamp. All my albums are on Bandcamp on all streaming platforms. I'm on Instagram, X, Facebook. I have somebody I'm working with who's helping me with a TikTok.
Gotcha.
Lord help me. But
Understandable.
yeah, trying to promote myself better than I have, and humble myself in an interesting way of making myself more known.
Yeah, I'm right there with the podcast, but
Yeah, all those platforms, and that's it. Yeah.
yeah, very cool. Well, everybody, thank you for listening to this episode. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. This has been Consecrated Media. Did you enjoy this episode? Want to hear more of this? Please let me know by leaving a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, and feel free to interact with me over on Instagram at consecrated.media. And everybody, keep it snazzy.